Well, I'm joined by Chris Thomas, and Chris, we're doing this interview really to talk about how you're getting on with the public service remit. You've been talking to the BBC, and the Manx Radio thing has also been in the news. But let's start with the BBC. I mean, and we've had a chat about it. I think we must talk to a lot of people about it. You were in there. You've had some negotiations by now. And
we've had the first meeting at a political level.
Political level. So who are you seeing at BBC? How high did you get?
The director of England and corporate strategists from other parts, other nations. So basically, I'm going back at the end of this month to Salford, and objective number one on both sides, I think, was to establish the partnership and to agree that we needed to work in partnership. I think we also agreed that we needed to establish clear objectives on both sides as soon as we could, and I think that was achieved in the first meeting, and that's what I reported to Tynwald in October.
Are you banging the table? Are you saying this is just not good enough? I mean, it seems like it's gone forever that the Isle of Man's a second-rate service to other areas.
But understand it from the BBC's point of view, Paul, because you've lived this as well. So, you know, from the BBC's point of view, Manx Radio was there before BBC Local Radio and before many BBC services were invented. And it's been a passionate belief in the Isle of Man that was paramount. We had to preserve Manx Radio because it was part of the tradition and the institution.
It's helpful for them, surely. This is their argument, isn't it? We don't need to do it because you're doing it yourself.
Well, not necessarily. I think you could see it from their point of view, which is, you know, tell us what you want. Do you want us to come in and be more involved in the BBC, you know, as BBC in the Isle of Man, or do you not want us to come in and be more involved? So we just want to clarify that sort of thing.
They give training to Manx Radio. They provide this local democracy reporter, which works out there. There's going to be a political. That's presumably part of this.
Yeah. So what I announced was the political reporter, and there's much more to come. So I think you know, if you go back through the 13 or 14 reports over the years of Manx Radio on public service broadcasting on the Manx Radio itself, you know, it changes what our local objectives are and where those objectives fit with the current BBC policies towards local radio, local television, technology has changed as well. Sure. So all we're trying to do at the moment is build that partnership and put together work streams that talk about technology, that talk about the nature of what an independent public service media is, that perhaps talk about buildings, but I mean, I don't want to preempt the discussions.
Maybe I'm being simplistic here, but to me it seems so simple that the money that's spent in Jersey and Guernsey out of the licence fee on the local product, and they do have a lot of local product because they've got ITV down the road, which makes it much more exciting for them because BBC loves to compete. I mean, that's just the way it is. You know, have you actually drilled down? Have you found out how much that money goes to Jersey Guernsey per licence fee holder, and how much actually comes to the Isle of Man, and what happens to the remaining part of it?
No, I think so. I think you're right. I think nearly 5 million is collected in TV licences in the Isle of Man. I think the BBC estimate that it would cost 1.5 million at least to run Manx Radio if it's a BBC local radio station. I think they spend 2.6, 2.7 million on Guernsey and Jersey operations. So there's obviously a difference there, and that's very much part of the bedrock of our negotiations and the building of our partnership. But I don't want to get into the figures as such. All it is our objective is to get equal treatment to Jersey and Guernsey.
I just remembered when there was that big report into public service broadcasting by the committee when the BBC came in. They kept going, so, you know, there's no BBC Radio Chess yet, and I really I was kind of really concerned that they were thinking we was part of a little BBC in UK.
No, I think they're disabused of that notion now. I think that they understand that the Isle of Man is a nation rather than a region of England, but we're talking to England, which is organised in regions, and so that's part of the early stages of establishing the partnership.
So you got this political reporter. I mean, that was the next thing, you know, that they threw that on the table today as the next thing we'll give you.
No, it's just first thing we asked them to do was to summarise what they'd done since the Tynwald report, and that was, you know, nearly finalised, and it was finalised quite soon thereabouts, and it's the beginnings of a process. In principle, we're meeting quarterly, and as I said twice in Tynwald, isn't it a good idea to give me space, not quite in a corridor, but at least not in a tunnel, but at least not in the corridor, to negotiate and to try and work out what we're trying to achieve, to let them explain what they can do, and then hopefully come back to Tynwald.
Have you got an end plan? Or you just,
I do have an end plan, yeah.
But you're one of these negotiators, I can see it's quite different from you're not a banging on the table, are you, Guy?
No, I've got
you're more logic and more.
I've got a negotiating mandate from the Council of Ministers, and they've given me that mandate to go in and negotiate. So that's what we're doing.
So what's going to happen? Have you got a timetable that we'll find it, or is this, as you say, ongoing meetings, or will there be a definite announcement that the BBC is going to do this or that or whatever? Yeah,
we're meeting for up to 12 months, with the next meeting at the end of November in Salford.
Right. And public service broadcasting, I mean, it's such a thing. Do you see other people having availability to money that BBC can't?
You're so old-fashioned. We don't talk about public service broadcasting.
Media, you're going to say.
Independent public service media. I mean, I said at some point in the debate in Tynwald about last month that the attempt to set up a committee to look at independent public service media is dead. Long live the concept of public service media. So you were part of the transformation. You know, you're former radio, and you've done great things with these sorts of talking heads.
Thanks.
You know, 3FM, Energy FM have all played their part. Isle of Man Newspapers has transformed itself and has got its podcasts. Yeah. Even you will concede that Manx Radio is a very different beast from what it was 2 years ago and 5 years ago and 10 years ago. The BBC is transforming itself with sounds.
So you've got confidence in the whole thing?
I've got all I'm saying is we're in an exciting time because money is very precious to the Isle of Man government. Money is very precious for the BBC. They've got big plans, we've got big plans, and we're talking about partnership and strategic partnership, and let's see if something good can come out of it.
And next time they put a map up, it's either missing the Isle of Man or it's showing it as part of the United Kingdom. You're onto them, are you?
Well, it seems to me that since we've been talking, the Isle of Man weather does come up. The places in the Isle of Man do have a lot of mention on the maps that go through. We have had a lot of good stories about it, but that's only a very small part of it. What we're talking about is value for money for TV licence payers, value for money for the Isle of Man taxpayers, value and some sort of equivalence with Jersey, Guernsey, Scotland, Wales, which you've long compared us with in terms of coverage. But we can't live in the past. We can't dwell on figures. What we've got to do is we've got to work out what technology allows now, what the public wants, what the future is of independent public service media. And there are some massive issues. I mean, there's a really important Director General BBC speech all about fake news and how you need to go back and have trusted brands. And the BBC is one of those trusted brands. Manx Radio is as well. You will give them that credit. And so they're very important aspects of public service media. And the other point to you is, who knows what it's going to be like in 5 years. The Manx public is not going to be as much at the centre as somebody like the BBC. But what we've got to do is we've got to have strategic partnerships, and that's what we're talking about. It's not Manx Radio going in and banging the table saying we want equal treatment with the BBC. It's yours truly trying to negotiate properly a strategic partnership, and that's where we are.